Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and welcome to my tutorial for a generic class-based views coding assignment. And this is based upon two chapters of the Pinkham book, Django Unleashed, chapters 17 and 18. The bulk of the work that we're doing is covered in chapter 17, and just one section of chapter 18 where we add some code in to do a cleaner job and a fancier job of the pagination. So where do we come here from? Well, we come here from having done the static files assignment, and in the static files assignment we added layout and styling to our site. So now we have a site that looks like this, and the styling and the layout are pretty much borrowed from the code from the Pinkham book, and it's pretty good. Certainly a lot more attractive than the unstyled and the unlaid out version. But it's got a glitch or two that hopefully by the time we get done with all these will work out. Okay? So what's on the agenda for today? Well, for this assignment, well, I'm just going to share with you the script that I have for this. Okay? This is a refactoring coding assignment, which is to say if we do everything the way that we want to do it, it's going to behave pretty much the same as when we started. Our code is going to be more compact. It's going to be more maintainable over time. And the only additional functionality that we're going to do is the pagination that we brought to the instructor list and to the student list. We're going to do in a more general way. So we're going to squeeze some code out, but we're actually going to add a couple of extra, I'd say, good pagination features to those two lists. Okay. So what we're doing is we're going to put the work, we're going to talk about how to do a redirect with a generic class-based view, how to serve up a static-like page. The about page, it's a dynamic page in the ultimate sense, but it doesn't have a lot of changeable content on it. And then we're going to go into refactoring the list views. And from there, we're going to talk about perhaps refactoring the detail views, but we're not going to do it. Then we're going to go on and refactor the create views. After that, we're going to refactor the update views, and at the very end we are going to refactor just one of the delete views and talk about why it's not appropriate for the other views. In terms of files that we're going to give you, we're going to have we're giving you a new version of utils.py from the course info app. It has a page links mix in, which is just a whole lot of code for you to copy and type. And we have new versions of base.html. These are all templates, instructor list HTML, and student list HTML. So those should all be included in your starter files. So let's go back and talk about what we're doing. So there are two of these generic class-based views we can use right out of the box without subclassing them. And this is going to give us the opportunity to to get rid of some custom code. So why don't we do that? Okay, so if you remember, if we can get this here, if you remember, when we come into our code now, if we type in or we click on a URL that just has the root of the URL scheme, just the domain name, what's happening now is we're picking it up with a URL pattern, and we're sending it to a function-based view called redirect root. So we actually have a views.py for the overall project, and we do a redirect. Okay. So we've got custom code in order to make the redirection work. And what we're going to do now is we're going to use a generic class-based view class called redirect view, and we're going to do it without having to write custom view code. So let's take a look at this. Okay. First of all, we need to work on the URL pattern. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to pause 1 second to get out my already baked version of the code. All right, I've got that. So, you know what I'd like to do here is I'd like to space these out. I've taken to separating these from each other because they're easier to see if I put a line in between them. And it seems to spread them out, and that's good. Let's look at the pattern that we're going to use for the redirect of the root URL. Okay, so we've got a new pattern here, and I'm plugging it in from my already baked version, and it uses one of these generic class-based views called redirect view, and we don't have an import for it. So let's add an import. That didn't work. Now that wasn't what we wanted. Okay, let's undo that change. And we want Alt-Enter. Isn't that nice? There it is, Alt-Enter. We got what we wanted there. And so redirect view is the name of the generic class-based view. It does a redirect. We have to give it the name of the URL pattern that we are redirecting to. And of course, the one we've been redirecting to for this is course info section list URL pattern. And permanent equal false is well, it's the option that we want here. Okay, so we made this change. Okay, and now let's go to views.py. This is the code that we had before, and you know what? We can get rid of that file. So I'm just going to do delete. Say OK. One usage that's not safe to delete. Oh, it is an import. Get rid of our import that we're not using anymore. Okay, and then let's go ahead and do the refactor. Rerun, save, delete. Okay. All right. So we did a delete there. Very good. That's what we want. And we should be able to test. We should be able to go down and run our server. Run server. And we should get the same kind of behavior we got before, we should go right to section list. And that's what we do. And if we want to test it a little more explicitly, let's just say if we just have the domain name, where do we go? Well, we go to the section list. So it seems to be working just fine. Okay? All right. So what do we do next? Well, the second thing that we can do is in the Pinkham book, chapter 15 had to do with a way to serve up flat pages. Okay. It was a flat pages feature. And I was going to actually do that chapter because I actually have a use case for that approach that's going to save me a lot of work in one of my applications. But as I put it into our Easy University tutorial, I saw that it really didn't add a lot to it. So I decided to cancel that and to put our time into these generic class-based views instead. And one of the views is an alternative to using flat pages. It's called the template view. So let's just take a look at that. Okay, so what was done back in chapter 15 using the flat pages feature was to add an about page. And we're going to add an about page now. Okay. And I can see now that I'm going to want to add the about page to my starter files. I don't have that on the list, but I will give that to you. And let's see. So the name of the class, the generic class-based view is template view. And again, let's do import on that. And what do you have to give it? Well, you have to give it a pattern name. So this is called about URL pattern. Okay, so that's fine. And we just have to point it to the proper template, which is in the course info under templates. It's called about.html. So let's pause here while I put it in the starter files. Okay, so I've added it to the starter files, and now I'm actually going to add it to our project. So under templates in course info, under course info, we're going to want to add, let's just paste it in, about.html. And it's already open, and you can see what we have here. Now, I just want to point out that this is, in a way, a static page, okay? In that the content that we're going to render from this is never going to change. You know, there are no template variables in here that are going to pull data out of the context and plunk it into the page that we're rendering. Nevertheless, the mechanics of this is it's a dynamic page. Okay, so what I like about this over the solution using the flat pages, first of all, the flat page feature is a dynamic page of sort, so it's not a static page anyway. And the thing about this is we actually have a template that's in our project, and it gets under version control. And it's a pretty good way to put in these kinds of pages. Okay, so here's our page, the about page, and then of course we have our URL pattern. So we're calling a template view as view. So we're not even going to have to customize this code. So we don't have to create a subclass of it. We just like the redirect view, we just use the class as it comes out of the box. And then we pass some parameters, probably indent that. That probably looks a little bit better, huh? And let's see how that works. Oh, now, is that enough? Well, it's kind of enough, but for instance, the About page is going to work. Well, let's just see how this works. Okay, so go here. If we want to go to the About page, well, we could just come back here and say About. And we go to the About page. But how could we click to go to the About page? Well, we're going to want to have to have a link in our high-level template, which is called base.html. So let's bring in those changes, okay? And there's a couple of changes in that version, but I'm just going to show you the link for right now. Okay, so that's in our starter files. We're just going to copy that and put it here and paste it. Okay. We're going to overwrite the one that's there. Okay, and let's open up base.html, and what you'll see is in this nav area, we should have added a link for the About. And I'm seeing that we don't have a link for the About. And that's not making sense. So let's try this one. Let me pause and get that fixed. Well, I found that mistake. Okay, so we're going to have to do that again. So let's go to base HTML. I'm going to copy that and paste it over the one that's there. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the course info directory again. So I want to paste it. Say OK, say it's all ready to override it. And here is our link for About right there. All right, so that's the extra code that we're going to talk about for now in this base.html file. So having done that, let's go down and look at this. And look, there's a link up here in the nav section for About, and when we click on About, we go right there. Well, very nice. That's what we wanted. Okay, I'm happy with that. All right, so let's go back to our script. Okay. So what have we done? Well, we did the redirect. We did the template view. We did the redirect view. We did the template view. Now, the first thing that we did when we put together the views, when we built this thing, is we did the list views. Okay, so we've got two kinds of list views right now. We've got course list and I'm sorry, not course list. So we've got instructor list and student list, and that has the pagination. And then we've got three others. We've got course list, section list, and semester list that don't have the pagination. So I'm going to show you course list, and I'm going to pause and have you do the other two, section list and semester list. And one of the things you're going to like is that this is pretty straightforward stuff. Okay, so let's take a look at our views right now. Okay, so view-wise, let's take a look at the view code. Views.py. Okay, and let's go up to the top. And we've got instructor list, and instructor list is pretty big. Okay, it's got some information in there about how the pagination. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be on instructor list. My pardon. Pagination second, non-paginated first. Okay, course list. My. It's always the last thing you try. Course list. Here it is. So we've got course list. It's a custom coded. So a course list, a subclass is view. Okay, and let's just do this. Let's just comment out that code for a minute. Okay, and let's just see what we're going to replace it with. Okay. So let me get this and get my course list. And it turns out as simple as the code that we have already is, this new version is significantly simpler. Okay, so its subclass is list view, which of course we need to import. So let's get that done. Okay, we did that import. And this is so simple. All we have to say is what's the model that this is for. That's it. So we're replacing about 8 lines of code with 2. Okay, why don't we test it while we still can. Run down. Okay. So if we click on courses, where's our course list? Well, that looks fine. Yeah, that's good. This one, that's good. Okay, so when we're refactoring like this, okay, we want to change the code and we don't want to change the behavior at all. All right, so what we do not want to do is we do not want to leave commented code in our code base. I want to get that out of there as soon as we can. Okay, and that one's done. Okay, so now we have 2 other non-paginated lists, section list and semester list. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to want you to, following the model of the code that you see here, which is pretty straightforward stuff, go and replace the views or refactor the views for a section list and semester list. Make sure you subclass list view and make sure you tell it what the model is. Okay, and also make sure you do the testing. And I'm going to pause for you to do that, and I'll be back when you're done. Okay, so I have done with the refactoring on semester list and section list, those 2 views, and I'm going to show you my testing. So here's the section list. That seems to be working fine. Again, we'll kind of click around with it. That's working fine. And semester list, well, that seems to be working fine too. Yeah, okay. So I'm happy with that. Okay, so we did the refactoring for the list views that didn't use pagination was pretty straightforward. Okay, so not hard to do at all. Now, what about the ones that require the pagination? Okay, those are instructor list. Where's instructor list and student list, and they're both pretty big. Okay, they begin by picking the number of lines in a page and things like that. But the get has all kinds of code in it for pagination, and of course we've got essentially two copies of this code because we have it once for instructors and we have once for students. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to refactor this such that we can use list view, and we also have a way to do the code for pagination. Okay, and we only have one copy of the pagination code. So how do we do this? Well, first of all, let's take our instructor list code, which is pretty long, and let's highlight it and toggle it into a comment like we did before. And let's see what the instructor list code is going to look like when it's refactored. And you'll be happy to know that it's very compact. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Very compact. Okay, so we have instructor list. We have a page links mix-in. That's interesting. That's where a common code for the pagination goes. And then, of course, it's also a list view. Okay, but that's it. All right, now where does page links mix-in go? Well, it goes into utils.py. So let's open that up. When we start, we have an object, create mix-in. We're going to get rid of that soon. But in our starter files, we have a copy of utils.py, and I'm just going to open this in an editor. Okay, and I'm going to show it to you right here. So here it is in my other editor. Okay, and it's just got utils.py when we're done with the chapter, just has this page links mix in. But right now, we don't want to just copy one over top of the other because we still need that object create mix in. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to put page links mix in right here. Okay, and that's getting the job done. And it's pretty interesting code, okay, because what you're going to see is that we're doing a little bit more on the pagination. We want to show the first page, if there is a first page, the last page. Well, of course, there's going to be a first page. So the first page, the last page, okay, the previous page, and the next page. And we want to do these in such a way that we only show the links that make sense. So where did we get this code? We got this code right out of the Pinkham book. Okay? This code is right out of Pinkham Chapter 18. Okay? We changed a couple of lines of code to confuse the innocent, but for the most part, we've lifted this from Pinkham. So that takes care of the page links mix in, okay? But if we go back to views, we still have an unresolved we still have an unresolved import. So let's do this. And it can see, oh yeah, we can import it from course info utils. Okay, so that's resolved. Okay, and now, what else has changed? Well, two other things have changed that have to do with this instructor list. One we've already changed, but we haven't really looked at it yet. So let me do that. If we go to base.html, okay, if we go down to the bottom, we have on every page now, this is the base page, we check to see if it's a paginated page. If it is, then we put in all the markup and content for pagination, okay? So what's really nice here is if we want to add a pagination to any page, we just have to do a little bit of work to the view, but in terms of the template, it's going to be in the base template, and if we use it, it's going to show up. If we don't use it, it isn't going to show up. Okay? Now, then we're going to want to take it out of our template for instructor list. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to get instructor list.html, and I'm going to copy it from my already baked version, and I'm going to paste it here, and I'll say, yeah, overwrite it. So let's look at instructor list HTML, and I just want to show you that there's no content down here to deal with the pagination. And why can we do that? Well, because we've added it to the bottom of, or to the middle here of base.html. Okay? So that's been taken care of. All right. Okay, so let's just test this out, see what it looks like. All right, so let's go to the instructor page. Well, looks good. So far we have an instructor list. And let's look down at the bottom. So we say page 1 of 6. We don't have a previous. We're on the first, so we don't want a link for the first. But we do want a link for the next and the last. So let's go to the next. There we are. So now there's a first link, a next link, and a last link. So what's really sophisticated about this approach is that because we have the first, we don't have a previous. But if we go one farther, whatever you want to say, now we have a full complement of links. We're on the middle-ish page. We have a link for the first, a link for the previous, a link for the next, a link for the last. So we can go to the last, brings us to page 6. We can go to the first, that brings us to page 1. Okay? Now, the nice thing is we get all that functionality without having to really do lots of coding. Okay, so we've really squeezed a lot of the custom code out of this. And if we go to views.py, you'll see again that we had to add this page links mix in to list view. But so we're saying that instructor list inherits from page links mix in, it inherits from list view, and we can configure it by just 2 lines. One saying how many lines per page, and the other saying that the model is instructor. And now we can get rid of a lot of code. Okay, that's a lot of code. It's gone. Pretty good stuff. And just to prove that we didn't break it, go to instructor list and there it is, working just fine. Okay, so I'm going to show you where we are here. Okay, so I have done the instructor list. So I changed the code to use the generic view. I put the page links mixin into utils.py. Okay. And we have moved the markup for the pagination from list.html to base.html. So we have updated list.html and base.html. So now you're going to need to do the equivalent of those three things for student list view. Okay? So I'm going to pause and have you do that. And when I come back, we'll take a look at the testing. Back soon. Okay, so you've made that change, so you should have refactored the student list view. And of course, when you get done, it should be looking about like this, just a few lines long. You should have updated the student list.html file from our starter files. And let's just go and click on students, and we get a student list, and it's paginated just fine. Okay, and let's go to next, and let's go to last, and let's go to first. Okay, so that's looking good. Now, I just want to point out that if we're really testing these, we want to make sure that they're not going to be paginated if they don't need to be paginated. Remember, that was one of the original features. So how can we test that? Well, we can test that by we can test that by doing a show migrations. Okay. And as you remember, these last two, 6 and 7 in course info, are what added the extra student and the instructor data. So let's back those out. Okay, so let's say migrate course info. And we want to go back to 0005. Okay, and that's looking done. And then let's just go right back up to this new version. I'm working on version of PyCharm Professional, which is 2018.1. And even when you start the server, you get the prompt back in manage.py. And so you can run commands in the window, and then you can go back and you still have your server up. So now I still have my server up. I can run my server. So let's look at instructors, no pagination, because it's a short list. And let's look at students, no pagination, because it's a short list. Okay? And what am I going to do? Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to come right on back, and I'm going to bring my data back. So I'm going to say show migrations. I do that. And migrate course info 0007. Okay, and I can just type run server down here again if I want to. It said the port was already in use. That's fine. And we're going to bring these up. And instructors is paginated again. Beautiful. Okay, so that worked great. So we'll take a short pause here for me to fix a piece of equipment. I'll be right back. Okay, so let's go back to our script and see where we are. So the next thing that we have in our list of views in our code views.py is we've got the detail views, okay? And I'm not going to do the detail views using this feature because it's kind of more work than it's worth. So let me show you the code and I'll tell you the problem that causes a lot of extra work. Okay? So let's go up to the top one, the instructor. We have instructor detail, okay? And the thing that we do on all of our detail views is that we go and we chase down our many-to-many fields, okay? And we retrieve a query list, a query set of, for instance, all of the instructor sections, okay? And we have a template that renders that, that's looking for that. Okay, so if we were to use the generic class-based view, if we said that instructor detail was a subclass of detail view, we would have to override one of the methods in here to get it to work. Okay, the amount of code that we're left with when we're done is not any less than what we have here. So I could see the argument. I could see somebody said, well, as long as we're going to use these generic class-based views, we're going to use them for everything at all cost. I could see that argument. It's not the one that I'm convinced by now. Okay, so the detail views we're going to leave as is. We're not going to go and use the detail view. We're not going to subclass that. Instead, we're going to move on to the create views. Okay, so let's look at instructor create. That's the next one down. Okay, now that's not too big. Okay, but it has this object create mix-in that we had to create, and of course we're going to have to maintain ourselves, okay? So all of our creates are using this object create mix-in. So if we go to utils.py and open that up, we'll see we have that, okay? Now, it's nice that we're able to write that, but it turns out that the generic class-based view, create view, has this code available to it. It has the equivalent of this same code. So here's what we're going to do. For right now, we're just going to stop using this. Now, the first time that we refactor one of these, if we do this for instructor create, can we get rid of this code yet? No, we have a whole bunch of them. So it's only after we refactor all the create views that we can go and get rid of our object create mix-in. Okay? Well, let's go back to views. Okay. And let's look at instructor create. Let's give that a toggle. Okay. And let's go to my pre-baked version of it. And it turns out that it's about the same amount of code, but it doesn't have the cost that we have that object create mix-in, which is our custom code, which we need to maintain over time. So I would say that this one, that subclasses create view, is a better alternative. Okay? And the betterness hang on a second here. I want to import that. There's our import. The betterness comes not from lines of code or, we really want to use these generic class-based views, but the betterness comes from not having to maintain this object create mix-in over time. Oh, okay. We're going to, to built-in code for that. Okay, so that's that. So we've done that guy. Well, all right. Now, if we did this the right way, we should be able to go to our just run server. Sorry, I keep losing this. There it is. Okay. So we should be able to create an instructor. So let's do that. Instructor, create new instructor, and let's create Abraham Lincoln. And he creates just fine. Okay, that's good. No problem at all. So that worked fine. So where do we go now? Well, turns out that all these are the same. So we're going to take a pause here, okay, because I showed you instructor create. And now I want you to do the same thing for section, course, semester, and student. So you're going to do this number 9. Okay? So I'm going to pause, and I will be back when you have that done. Okay? So back soon. Okay, we're back. And I just want to remind you that there was one last thing to be done there, which is after we've done all those, section create, course create, semester create, student create, we need to go to utils.py and get rid of the code for object create mixin, because we don't need it anymore. So it's unused code. And also we don't want to maintain it anymore. So let's go to utils.py and get rid of object create mixin. So, and we don't need this import up at the top anymore either. Okay, so that looks good to me. Save that, and now we ought to be able to go down and do some testing. Let's run the server again. Oh, I have an error because I'm still trying to import that into my views.py. So do I need to import that anymore? No, I don't. So I don't need to import object create mixin anymore. I've got to fix that. Okay. And make sure all that gets saved. And it brings my server back up again. And there we go. So we've already done an instructor create. Let's try to create a section. Okay, section create. Section name 444. Semester fall 2020. Course info 110. Instructors Caroline Alsop. Students Abraham Clare. I still don't like the way that works, but we're not going to fix it quite yet. Yeah, it looks good. We're able to do that. Very good. And then courses. Okay, let's create a new course. So let's have a course basket 101, which is of course a basket weaving course, introduction to basket weaving. Basket weaving, all one word. I don't know if it's all one word, but it is now. Okay, probably not, but it is what it is. Courses, semesters. Let's create a new semester. So let's create 2016 fall. It's the one right before where we are. Okay, and let's look at semesters. Yep, that's up there. That's looking fine. And then students. So let's create a new student, and let's create Thomas Tank. Nickname Choo Choo. Thomas Choo Choo Tank. That looks good, and that's working just fine. So again, we're refactoring. Okay, so we're looking to make sure that we haven't broken the functionality. All right, good. So we've done the create. All right, what are we going to do next? Well, let's take a look. Go back to our script. All right. Okay, so we're going to do the updates. Now, are the updates going to work just one way? Yeah, they are. So I'm going to show you the instructor update, and then you're going to do the section update, course update, semester update, and student update on your own. Now, it turns out that these are a little more complicated than you might think. And that's because these classes, these generic class-based view classes, rely on naming conventions that we haven't completely followed. Okay? And so in order to use their magic, we're going to have to change the views.py code. But we're going to have to go into urls.py and change the name of one of our parameters, and then we're going to have to go into models.py and change one line of code as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight those. Well, wish I could highlight those things. I'm going to highlight those 1, 2, and 3 there. That's what we're going to be working on now. All right. So let's find our way to the code that we want, to the view code that we want. Okay. And we said we were going to find instructor update. So we're working our way through the sequence of these. Where's instructor update? So look at instructor update. There is a lot of code in instructor update. So if we can refactor these down so that they're less code and less to maintain, I think it's a good thing to do. Okay, now let's do what we've done the last couple of times. Let's just put all that in a comment. Let's toggle that into a comment. Okay, then I'm going to go to my already baked version and bring over instructor update, and we'll see what instructor update looks like. And you'll be pleased to see that instructor update is pretty compact. So let's just look at it. Very nice. So it is a subclass of update view, and we need to do an import for that. Okay, so that's taken care of. So what do we have to do? What do we have to do? Well, we needed to tell it the name of the model class. We've had to do that with all of these, so that's not a surprise. We need to tell it the name of the form class. That's not too surprising. If you're going to do an update, you're going to need a form. Okay. And then we're also going to have to tell it the name of the template. And the reason we have to tell it the name of the template is we have broken from the naming convention used by this class for the name of the form. Okay, so what a lot of people do is that they use the same template for the create and for the update. And so it would be called instructor form.html, but ours is called instructor form update.html. So we have to give it that too. But that's it. Okay? So this is 4 lines of code compared to 20 lines of code. This is a big change. Now, can I use this as is? No, I cannot. Okay? Why is that? Well, because let's go first to URLs where we have to fix this. Oh, and this is not the URLs for our application. So let's go to instructor update. Okay. And you'll remember, being good software engineers, I talked you into calling our parameter that's coming in on the URL. I talked you into calling it requested instructor ID. And you may remember that what a lot of people do is that they use PK for primary key, or they use slug if it's a slug. Okay? And I really don't like that. But it turns out that PK, as a name for this, is baked into our generic class-based view. So if we want to use it, we've got to say PK here. So we're just going to lowercase PK. Okay? We're going to change that to PK. So now it's going to work with our generic class-based view, update view. Okay, is that going to work? Is that going to be enough to change? No, turns out it's not. Turns out we're going to have to go to models, okay? And for instructor, we'll see that there is a get update URL, and we're going to have to say, oh, we're not passing it a requested instructor ID anymore. It's expecting to get a PK. So let's give it a PK. So to use the magic of update view, we're going to have to go back and use the convention of calling this parameter that we're passing in as part of the URL PK instead of a more descriptive name. Do we have to go and change this for everything? No, we don't. Okay, we're just going to change it where we need to change it. Okay, let's go try to do a test. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so we're going to try to update an instructor. So let's find an instructor. Okay. And it's very important when you're testing to not change the test data, because you're going to want to back that out. And if you've changed it, if you change the name of a test instructor or a test student, you're going to break your reverse part of your migration. So you need to find it was somebody who we added ourselves, and I think we just added Abraham Lincoln. So let's get down through here so we can find, do we have Lincoln? Lincoln, Abraham. Okay, so let's edit the instructor, Abraham Lincoln. let's just change his first name to Abe Lincoln and say update, and that worked just fine. All right, so now it's going to be your turn. So let me bring back this list of what you got to do. Okay. All right. So we're taking the same approach to everything. All right. So you're going to do this part right here. You're going to do section update, course update, semester update, student update. So you're going to do all those, but you have to remember that you're going to have to change the views code. You're used to that, but you're going to have to go to urls.py and find the URL pattern for the update that we're changing, and we're going to have to change that parameter name to pk, and then we're going to have to go into models.py and find the method that gets the update URL, and again we're going to have to change the parameter name to pk. All right, so kind of busy, but it allows us to take advantage of the update view magic. And as you saw, we're changing from about 20 lines of code to 4. And that's going to be much easier to maintain over time. So I'm going to pause and let you do that, and we'll be back when you're done and we want to test. Okay, we're back. So again, together we did the refactoring of Instructor update, which meant that we changed the code in views.py, urls.py, models.py, and then we did the testing. And now I've had you guys on your own do section update, course update, semester update, and student update. We're not going to do the testing of those together. I trust you that you did it. So we're going to go on to the last part, and that is the last of our list of views that we have for each of our primary tables is delete. So is there a generic class-based view called delete view? Certainly there is. Are we going to use it? Well, we're only going to use it in one case. Okay, and let me show you why. Okay, so let's shrink that. Now let's go to our views. Okay, so we don't allow a lot of deletes in situations where we would wreck the relational integrity of the database. So for instance, if we're on instructors and we have an instructor who has courses, I think that Jane Delory does. Well, she did at one time, but she doesn't now. So let's find Kevin Trainer. I know that he does. Okay, so Trainer Kevin. So we have him, and Trainer Kevin's got 4 courses. Okay. Now, if we say we want to delete Kevin Trainer, it won't let us do it. And that's because we have code in our delete view for instructor that says, oh, if this instructor is teaching any classes, you can't delete them. You have to go and change the instructor for those classes. Then you can come back and get rid of your instructor. And this is true on instructors. This is true on courses, semesters, and students. The only place it's not true is sections. Okay, if we have a section, let's say we have this one here, this last one, and we say when we want to delete a section, if we really want to delete it, we'll ask for our confirmation. But if we really want to delete it, it's going to get rid of a lot of data. Certainly that's true. But it's not going to wreck the integrity of the database. Okay? So there's only one view that will lend itself to the default behavior of delete view. Okay? And that's all we're going to use it for. We're going to leave the other ones as they are. So let's take a look at those. Okay, so let's go to views.py and get a look at our code. So when we look at something like instructor delete, let's find that one. Instructor delete view. Okay, so we're doing some substantial work here. Would it be possible for us to override some of the methods in instructor delete? In delete view and get this to work? Yes, it probably would. At this point, I don't think it's really worth our trouble to do. Okay, so there's only one that makes sense for us to do, and that's section delete. So let's go find that. Because you'll see here we don't actually check if it's connected to anything because we don't care with a section. We're on the one side of the one-to-many relationship in a lot of these cases, and again, we're not going to ruin the structural the relational integrity of the database. So let's take section delete. Okay, and put toggle that into a comment. Okay, and then let's go find our already baked refactored version. Section delete, and it's really trim. It's really trim indeed. Okay. So let's do that. That is it. Now, we don't have to configure a whole lot of things here. For instance, we don't have to tell it the name of the confirmation page. Why is that? Well, because the name of our confirmation page template follows the naming scheme magic of Django. Otherwise, we would have had to somehow configure that. Okay, so let's do some imports. Okay, so we're going to import that delete view, and we're going to import reverse lazy. And we've got those. And I'm going to be brave. I'm just going to get rid of this. So we really do save some code. This is maybe 15 lines long, and we're replacing it with 3. So that's a pretty hefty code savings. And because we're not doing any checking, we can just take it the way it is. Okay. Let's go and see that work. I think we've got one more thing to do. This is the same kind of deal that we had with update view. We're going to have to conform to the naming conventions in urls.py and models.py. So let's go change those. All right. Naming conventions. Let's go to urls.py. Okay. So we're looking for section delete. So that's the last thing in section. Section delete is right here. Okay, and there's an ID coming in. we're just going to give it the more pedestrian name of PK. Okay, we're going to save that. And then we have to go to the model. And in the model, we have a get section delete URL. And of course, we have to say, oh, to configure the URL pattern, we need to pass it a PK. PK. All right. All right, so we should be ready to go. So we're going to do delete a section now. So let's get back to our code. See it? So we have a section, and let's go to this 888 section. So, okay, we've got, we don't even have any students there, so this is a great one to delete. Delete it. It asks us if we're sure. Sure we are. Delete it. It's gone. So here we are. We have come to the end of the script, so that's the end of this particular coding assignment. We've added a little functionality, okay? We added an about page that we didn't have before, okay? So that's different. We've also, we've done refactoring for the list views, and we've refactored and also enhanced the pagination code so that on the instructors list and on the students list, we have more functional code that includes links for first, previous, next, and last, which is pretty fancy. Okay, so we've got that. But in the main, what we did in chapter 17 and the little bit of code we took from chapter 18 was for the new approach to pagination. We have refactored. It's probably 90% refactoring, 10% new functionality, or even a greater divide, maybe 95%, 5%. So that's the end of this assignment. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.